Before we start the meeting, we're going to have a moment of silence for Joe Etta, a lifelong and extremely lifelong resident of Cold Spring. Also Hans Muller, who was a public servant in town, emergency services provider and everything like that. So if you'd all just rise and stand for them. By the way, Joe Etta was 102 years old. All right. Thank you. All righty.
It's okay. The first item on the agenda is a resolution awarding the 2021 highway material bid number 6, bank run fill and tailings, FOB and delivered.
So that was the only item on the highway materials bids that we hadn't approved. It's either one, but more than likely it's going to be delivered, but they want the option of going to pick it up if they have an emergency to get something. They said there's, if that were just for pickup, then we wouldn't be going that way because it's a long ways away. Could I get a motion on that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next item on the agenda is a resolution approving the estimates for office furniture for the Phillipstown Justice Court and authorizing the Justice Clerk to place the order for such.
So John, you want to say anything about this? Or?
This is all included in the grant application for the next round of grants. So we're pretty hopeful that it's going to be included in there.
Right, and we got to have office furniture. So we're hoping to get a grant for this. We've been successful in the past, so we think we'll be successful this time, but we have to have courtroom furniture regardless of what happens. But
Thank you for Cindy to apply for the grant again and select furniture. And,
right.
so.
Yep. All right. Could I get a motion on that resolution?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Next is a resolution authorizing the supervisor to make the necessary budget transfers to close the books for the year 2020.
So this is a continuation of a meeting we had on Monday morning. Seems like a long time ago, only yesterday. This is a part of the year-end balancing of the books. We do budget transfers between lines every year to finish the year out, balance the books out, see what sort of reserves we'll have going into the following year, which this year is not a lot, but it's just part of our accounting. Could I get a motion on that resolution?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
The next item is a resolution authorizing Supervisor Shea to sign the contract between the town and Ron J. Gaynor, PEP LLC, for the fiscal year 2021.
This is for the town engineer. He sits with the planning board. He performs various engineering duties for the town, including some things for the highway garage that we have upcoming. We're trying to do some of that in-house. I don't know if anybody has anything to say about Ron. I think he's a good guy, good find.
Yeah, no, I think Ron does a good job. He's very approachable, easy to get along with, and, he gets back to you if you have questions.
Yep. He also has a ton of experience.
Yeah, water expert, everything, which does come in handy quite a bit. Yeah, yes, seeker expert, definitely, yeah.
He's got it all going, yeah. And a lot of common sense, so we really appreciate him. Could I get a motion on the resolution authorizing me to sign the contract between Ron Gaynor and the town?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
I'll
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Next is a resolution authorizing Supervisor Shea to sign the contract between the town and Max Garfinkel as the town's wetland inspector for 2021.
Tell you, Max is just a terrific person, really the consummate professional, really helps people a lot. I know, Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
besides his professional attitude towards working very well with people, he's very expert in what he does. He has a great deal of knowledge, has worked a great deal with us with the stormwater programs with Tara to upgrade our maps and so forth. So he has a tremendous amount of knowledge, and his working well with people is a perfect match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he's a great ambassador for the town, so really,
It's a great look on the town.
yeah, a great facilitator for us. He's down with COVID right now,
Really?
yes, so we're wishing him a speedy recovery.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. With that, could I get a motion on the resolution rehiring Max Garfinkel as a wetlands inspector?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Get well soon, Max.
Yeah.
Know you're probably watching, you know.
Yeah, oh, yeah, sure. Down his list of things.
Oh, yeah.
Next is a resolution authorizing Supervisor Shea and the town board to sign the contract for the Continental Village Volunteer Fire Department for fiscal year 2021.
All right, something we do every year. We met with them earlier in the budget season, went through their budget, approved the budget, and now we're going to sign the contract with them. So with that, just so people are clear, with Continental Village, they get funding from 3 sources. So they cover a portion of Camp Smith. They're also in Westchester County, and they cover Continental Village, which is in Philipstown. So our portion,
Always fiscally responsible group.
yeah, they are a very fiscally responsible group. You don't see any big leaps in that budget, and there's a lot of transparency there, so we appreciate that. Yep. With that, could I get a motion authorizing me to sign that contract? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next is any other business that you may have.
Anybody else have anything for closing out the year here?
Not that, but I think we might want to take a look at actually our sections under the zoning code next year in regards to animals and so forth. And there's an awful lot of very small properties that are having an awful lot of what I would consider farm animals and commercial, and it's causing some issues with neighbors and so forth. I think we have to take a look at that and think that out for what kind of land is required based upon how many we allow, and then do we in fact really want to just say that chickens and roosters and so forth are commercial and they're not really domestic like a cat and a dog is. Thinking of that, I mean, I try to tell people, I say the biggest thing that you can be safe with is if I can't see them, hear them, or smell them.
Yeah.
But I think we need to come up, maybe take a look at the acreage and so forth.
Yeah, but you're right, Michael, you see more people with chickens and hens
Rooster
and
complaints I'm
and
getting
everything
like unbelievably
around
now.
town.
So.
Yeah,
I've
it's
seen
one
it.
thing to have chickens, but roosters.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
5 o'clock in the morning
early in the
type
morning.
deals,
And then we're getting a lot of donkey complaints
Right.
again.
Yes. Yep.
So,
Donkey?
yeah, somebody's
Yeah.
got these exotic donkeys that they sound like the hounds of hell coming. I've been on Indian Brook Road, and it's like, what is that? So, yeah, we'll have to revisit that.
Casino's got some donkeys up there.
If we're going to address zoning issues, we need to look at the Airbnb short-term rentals as well, because that's something I know the village is currently working on it, right, Bobby? You were sitting on with the village meeting. That we need to
Haven't
come
been
up
there
with
for a
some sort
while.
of plan to.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. We had a trouble one for a while, but it was sold to a private resident, so I don't know of any current complaints going on, but it's only a matter of time, so.
Yeah. You have mixed feelings about it because the fact that right now people can get extra income out of it, which I wouldn't want to stop, but when you have places that are having 40 and 50 people at them,
Huge parties,
that's a different story.
week after week.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what Mike said, no harm, no foul. But if you're going to start raising hell in a residential neighborhood, then
Yeah.
we're going to come after you. So, all right, well, with that, we could adjourn this portion of the meeting, and then we're going to go to a workshop. So I think we had a good year.
I think you had a great year. Thank you,
Yes.
once
thank you.
again.
Yeah, everything worked out. We're all still here.
Yeah. For the town of Philipstown.
It was a challenging year, you're not kidding, and it's not over. So, gotta-
Next year, we can discuss maybe the vaccine rollout. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we were talking about potential for using this facility for a vaccine site. I think that's a great idea, so we do want to get that out there as soon as we can. So we'll,
Can I just mention something about tax Correction real quick.
Yes.
I spoke with my deputy, and we made the decision that we are not going to accept in-person payment. You can mail it in, you can drop it off in the mailbox out front. We're gonna put a drop box outside the doors every day. But just given the current situation, we decided that it was best to not do that. And you can still pay online,
Right.
so the bills will go out
Yeah,
next week.
there's no barrier there if you can drop it off. It's
Yes.
just, yeah, and if you have a question, call in. So, yeah, I agree, going into this winter, especially the way things are headed right now.
There's still staff in the building every day, 8:30 to 4. It's just we're not open to the public by
Yeah, we
appointment
just-
only, so.
Yeah, and the less person-to-person contact we have now is gonna be better until this thing is in the rearview mirror. So, yeah, I agree. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? I vote aye. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know, it's not the thing you'd like to be doing at this time of year, but we just want to get things squared away before the first of the year, hopefully. So as far as the workshop goes, this is just a give and take. There's no formality here, really. We want to hear what you have to say, and then we'll, come to some accommodation, I hope. I will be recusing myself. So Councilman Van Tassel is recusing himself. All right, Steve, do you want to give a synopsis of where we're at?
Sure. I think it was in November, the board came to me with the contracts for renewal for ambulance service for Philipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps and the Garrison Volunteer Ambulance Corps and First Aid Squad. And I reviewed the 2019 contracts, and I flagged at least 4 issues, legal issues, which were matters of concern. I discussed them with the board and prepared revised contracts for 2020. The issues were, first off, the issue of billing. Both ambulance companies bill for ambulance services, and under general municipal law, billing when a municipality provides ambulance service has to be done through the municipality. The ambulance company, or whether it's volunteer or professional, can't bill on their own. Let me take a step back on that, just kind of give you a little background. A municipality cannot subsidize a volunteer ambulance corps any more than it can just give money to a for-profit private ambulance company. Even though volunteer ambulance corps are certainly something you like to see in your community, and they add all sorts of benefits, not the least of which is, of course, EMS service. There's a provision in the Constitution that prevents a gift of public funds, and that would apply to if you just gave money to a volunteer ambulance corps. So what municipalities can do under the general municipal law is determined to provide municipal ambulance service and then contract with a volunteer ambulance corps to provide service for the town. And what the general municipal law says is when you do that, it's the town who can authorize billing. You can also decide that there's not going to be billing. We're going to pay for this through tax dollars, and if you decide that, then the volunteer ambulance corps, if acting under a contract with the town, is not allowed to bill. They just get their money from the town. You can, as Phillipstown is doing, have a hybrid situation where the volunteer ambulance corps receives a cash payment for services under a contract, and in addition to that, bills are issued, and the funds received on the bills are kept by the volunteer ambulance corps as additional consideration under the contract. However, there are procedural requirements when you do that, not the least of which is when the money comes in from billing, it belongs to the town. So there has to be an accounting of money received by the volunteer ambulance corps. Further, you can't engage, or the billing company that's utilized can't engage in what's called soft billing, where you bill only Medicare and insurance companies, and you excuse deductibles and payment amounts that are not covered. You have to bill for everything, and at the end of the day, there's an accounting to the town, and then the town, if so inclined, writes off as bad debt the amounts that haven't been received. But you can't just not bill for it, and the town has to be responsible for the billing. The contracts that I saw for 2019 didn't have any of those provisions. and so I felt they were not compliant with New York State General Municipal Law. The General Municipal Law also has a provision in it that says when a municipality is providing ambulance service through a contract, the municipality shall propagate rules and regulations for the provision of ambulance service. And these can be as complicated or as simple as the municipality wants them to be, but you have to do it. And as far as I can tell, the town's never issued official rules and regulations. So I put a provision in the revised contract for the town to issue rules and regulations for ambulance service. And I took some rules and regulations from other municipalities who'd issued them before, and I modified them as just a draft, a proposed draft for the town to promulgate. And I gave them to the town board in addition to the draft contracts. The third issue that I flagged was the issue of, like I said, subsidizing volunteer ambulance corps. The contracts that the town and PVAC and GVAC were entering into didn't provide for, a per call payment or some particular formula as to how they'd be paid. Rather, and I'm late to the game, so this is just how it looked to me, it looked like the two ambulance corps developed their budgets and said, this is the amounts of money we need for new vehicles, for whatever expenses we have, and would submit them to the town. I don't know if allowance was made for prospective amounts to be received from billing or not, but certainly the amounts that were being requested were budget-based rather than compensation-based. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. I mean, if you're going to structure it through a contract, that's fine, but there's a concern when the amounts include things like big purchases, vehicles, for example, could be certain items of equipment. Because once the town cuts a check under a contract to, pay the ambulance corps, if the ambulance corps buys a vehicle, the vehicle is titled to and belongs to the ambulance corps. And if the ambulance corps goes out of business or otherwise has a financial problem, the vehicles would be lost, and the town could pay $300,000, whatever it is, for a emergency vehicle, which if the ambulance corps that it's titled to, is in a position to lose it, that the town would no longer have the benefit of that. So, you don't want to interfere with day-to-day operations of the ambulance corps and their ability to, flip vehicles for new vehicles and things like that. So the way I thought to get around this and provide some protection for the town was to include a provision, with a right of first refusal for $1. Oh my God, these people are persistent. Here we go. For $1. And the idea there isn't that the town would ever interfere with resale of vehicles or anything like that by the ambulance corps. The idea is, they're going out of business, there's some other sort of a problem where the vehicle needs to be sold, and the town doesn't want to see it sold as a loss. The town would have some mechanism, at least, for recapturing the vehicle so that it isn't lost altogether in the event that the volunteer ambulance corps would have a financial problem. And lastly, there was the issue of oversight and management. It's important to understand that ambulance contracts are professional service contracts. They're not contracts that are subject to going out for bid to the lowest bidder. It's medical service. It's like hiring an attorney or an engineer or any kind of consultant. It's very important that the town be comfortable with the management and the officers of the ambulance corps because they are your representatives in the community providing emergency medical services. And the way the contracts were set up currently, there's literally no oversight. You have no say in who's making the day-to-day decisions for providing ambulance service for the town. So what I did was I added a provision saying that at the beginning of the year, the slate of officers and managers for the ambulance companies would be presented to the town, and you would approve them. And there wouldn't be any change to the officers and managers without town approval as well. That way you know who you're dealing with. on a professional services contract like this, you can be comfortable with them. And it is just a yearly contract. I mean, it'll change over time, but for that year at least, the town is being represented in the way you want it to be represented. So I provided those draft documents back to the town. Town board took a quick look at them, and I believe a letter was sent out to PVAC and GVAC with the draft agreements. Well, one other thing, in terms of the fees to be charged. Like I said, the town approves billing. In approving billing, the town also sets the schedule of fees to be charged. I had no idea what would be the appropriate fees to be charged in Putnam County, particularly in Phillipstown. So what I did was I just took, just as a form, I mean, no intention of the numbers being binding numbers or anything. I said, this is the type of schedule of fees that the town would adopt, and that's what you would have to do when you authorize billing. And I thought there'd be back and forth between the contracting, volunteer ambulance corps, and the town as to what the appropriate amounts to fill in on that schedule of fee was. So anyway, the contract went out, the rules and regulations went out, the draft schedule of fees went out, and we heard back from PVAC. PVAC sent a revised contract which basically took out all the changes that I proposed to put in. And they sent back a proposed revision to the rules and regulations, which took out, not all of them, but over half as far as the rules and regulations that were proposed to be adopted. GVAC we have not heard back from, although I heard they did want to meet with the board and discuss this further. So that's where things stand tonight, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay. Is there anything from the board right now? Anything from the Phillipstown Ambulance Corps? Yes. You can step up to the mic. Mike?
Good evening, members of the board. I'm a attorney at Hogan and Rossi, Brewster, New York, representing the Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps. So we reviewed the contract, and we have a significant amount of concerns with the contract as proposed. And we certainly can't agree to go into contract with this contract in 2020 for 2021. So I just going through the topics that were raised, billing in particular, one of the things that's very important for the board to understand is that the contract amount that's provided to the town board is based on a combination of contract amount with you and a figure that is estimated to be billed and recouped. So the annual contract amount or the budget amount for the Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps is approximately $520,000 a year to operate. But the budget amount is in the 300,000s. So in order for us to enter into this contract, if we're going to switch to from soft billing to hard billing, then we have to make up that difference, and that difference has to come from somewhere. And so if we're not going to be involved in the billing aspect, and respectfully, I agree about how the additional compensation is supposed to work. There's no argument from Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps about what the law says. The law has been the law for over a decade, but apparently this year it's now come to a head and become an issue for whatever reason. It's been the same law for the last 10 years, and we've been billing for 12 years, 20. So, to be 8 days away from 2021 and to be in a position where the entirety of the billing operation needs to change isn't doable unless the board is going to come to us and say, well, this is the amount of money that you need to raise to operate. We're just going to give it to you, which effectively means you guys need to have an extra $150,000 in your budget ready to go to supplement us. And I don't know if that's a possibility for you guys. If it is, we would love to not be involved in billing. It would take a huge burden off of our back, and frankly would do the Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps a favor by not being involved in that aspect. So that's a real significant component because we need funds to operate. And the way the contract figure is right now, if we switch that method, we're not going to be able to do that. Second, with regard to the rules and regulations and the schedule of fees, We could certainly come to some conclusion as to what the appropriate fees were, but we did reject the bulk of the rules and regulations. We haven't had a problem thus far. We don't see a reason why some of the rules and regulations needed to be implemented now. Importantly, there are some facts that the Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps has, such as, we're running at a 97% call response rate. This is the best run volunteer ambulance corps in Putnam County. Nobody has numbers like these guys do. I represent other fire departments that have ambulance service, Brewster Southeast Joint Fire in particular. I think, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we'd be really happy if we had 97%. You agree? That's right. When we got this contract, frankly, it really would have been nice to have the conversation first before receiving the contract, because the contract landed like a lead balloon. It was, frankly, offensive. And if there wasn't a problem, the way we looked at it was, well, if there isn't a problem here, then what are we trying to fix? Billing law aside. So we struck the rules and regulations that we found to be either duplicative or stuff that we didn't feel necessary to have. That was, maybe they were already covered under our rules and regulations or our standard operating procedures into how we currently operate. We're currently not aware of any issues from the public about how we operate, our appearance, the demeanor of our members as it relates to being on calls. Unless the board has heard otherwise, nothing seems to have been relayed to the members of the Volunteer Ambulance Corps about that. With regard to the right of first refusal, we rejected that because, importantly, there is a combination of funds that are used in connection with the purchase of apparatus, and in particular, fire vehicles. The most recent ambulance was used, the Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps received an inheritance. They used that money in conjunction with other monies to buy the ambulance. And so the proposition that these are, in effect, owned by the town is not correct. They are titled to the Volunteer Ambulance Corps. We understand the concern if the VAC was going to go out of business. You guys have put a lot of money into potentially apparatus and they could be lost. But this doesn't work. We need the ability to alienate these things, to sell them, to trade them in, to do what we do because we know what we're doing. We haven't had an issue with this. Our budgets have been good. The increases have been minimal over the period of time. We don't know of any instance where the board has had concern about the fiscal operation of the Volunteer Ambulance Corps. I've been involved in entities that do have issues and have had issues. We have the appropriate oversights in place. So frankly, to be in a position now where we have to come to the board and ask to do something raises significant concerns, which are to have to come to some other party in order to make decisions about how to operate is a problem for us. We don't feel the need to have that particular type of oversight in place. And again, if we're gonna, when you look at the budget, as far as budgets for apparatus, we could certainly move our budget line somewhere else. So for instance, when we hand you a budget and we say $100,000 for an ambulance, we could not put that there. We could put $100,000 for something else and leave the ambulance off. And the import of that is it's not supposed to be a magic trick, but if you guys feel that you own these things, yeah, you're paying for them through contract. Sure, we're providing a contractual service to the town. Those are lawfully owned by us, and we don't feel that having the possibility of interference, but possibly politics, get involved in what we do with our ambulance, which is a vital service to the community, and shouldn't be really much politics going on at all, other than are these guys responding to people in need. And that's a perfect segue into oversight and management. And we cannot agree to the board determining who our officers and directors are in the Volunteer Ambulance Corps. It's a non-starter for us. Frankly, it's hard enough to get people to volunteer in 2020. It's probably the most difficult thing right now facing the fire service and the volunteer ambulance service is getting volunteers when we live in a community, all of us, we live in Putnam County. It's a community that requires double income to live here, to have any sort of appreciable standard of living. Our time is jeopardized significantly. I think anybody could agree that their day doesn't work. No one works a typical workday anymore. So to put the possibility where the board could reject a slate of officers, let's say they're the only officers we put up, what happens next if they get rejected? Where does it go? What happens to the volunteer ambulance corps? And, frankly, that's an issue for us. It's an issue, and apparently something is afoot. I mean, I got a call from Steve to say, if Chris is involved in the ambulance corps, then we're going out to bid, okay? And that's precisely why we would never agree to a comment in a contract like that. There's no way. If you run an organization, there's no way you can agree to have some other entity have that type of oversight into your operation. Certainly, you can't have it in the absence of any issues with response. There's no issues with response. There's no issues with fiscal management whatsoever. And we feel it's an overreach. We won't agree to it. And those are our comments on the contract. Thank you.
All right. If I could respond to those one by one, we don't have the option of ignoring general municipal law. Just because it's been 10 years, 20 years,
We're not saying, just on the same. We're not suggesting you ignore it. What we're saying is we can't implement it in 2021. 2022, absolutely, but not 8 days away from the end of the year, unless you want to adjust our contract to make up for those funds that are not accounted for through the billing. See, what happens is in order to get those additional funds, that additional compensation, we have to provide, quote unquote, under the law, additional services, right? Effectively, it's a fabrication. What other additional services could we possibly provide to the town in addition to what we're already providing? There's nothing else out there for us to do. So our proposition is you keep all the money, pay us what we need for our budget. That's how we would agree to go forward. But this is a months-long conversation, not an 8-day away, from the end of the year conversation. Unless you guys have the money to fund us fully. If you do, I think we would relinquish the entire responsibility for billing.
That's a misunderstanding as to how the billing would work. I mean, I'm sorry, Mike, but the way that it would work is basically exactly what's happening now, plus there would be an accounting to the town as to all the billing. All the billing would have to go out, regardless. You couldn't omit anybody or anything.
You
along
could
those
hard
lines.
bill. We don't have a horse in that race. We
But that's
have no
just fine.
horse in the hard bill.
So things stay exactly the same as they are now, except, the money's acknowledged in the contract to belong to the town. It's kept not as additional services, but as additional compensation, meaning compensation that may or may not come in. You're getting X dollars, and then, look, you're going to get paid. But is there a chance that you issue bills and it's to people who can't pay them? There's a chance you issue bills and it's people who can't pay them. And if that happens, the town's not responsible for the amount of the billing that the ambulance company sent out. You don't get that money necessarily. Now, you're going to get it as a practical matter because Medicare is going to pay, insurance is going to pay, et cetera. We don't know what that amount's going to be at the end of the day, though. So there's no lag, nothing changes, except there's an accounting to the town, there's an acknowledgement that the money belonged to the town in the first instance, is now being kept by the ambulance company as additional compensation, and at some period, 2 years, whatever it is, it seems appropriate, the town's going to pull out those accountings and say, all right, we didn't get $100 on these 50, 100, whatever it is, different bills. We didn't get 150 on these, 75 on these. For us to start a lawsuit and chase people for $100 makes no sense. We're going to lose more money than we make. We're going to write it all off as bad debt. And that way you avoid the soft billing problem. But in terms of how things work practically now, in terms of money coming into the ambulance company, nothing changes. It's just a structural change in terms of acknowledging the money belonged to the town in the first instance. The ambulance company has no right to bill unless the town allows it, which the town will do. The amounts billed will be set by schedule in accordance with what it is you normally bill. The town will adopt a resolution setting that by schedule. And like I say, you get an accounting at the end of the day. I can't imagine how much more the billing company's going to charge for that. It can't be terribly much. And there you go.
The law seemed pretty clear that that additional compensation had to be made up for work. There had to be a component to the additional
not the case.
compensation.
At least that's my understanding.
I'm just telling you what mine is.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
How's everybody doing? So with the billing, at the end of this month, we are writing off calls from 2017. There's really no structure. It sits out there in limbo, and if people pay, they pay. Now, if you want a hard bill, that's fine. John's not here, but when he got on the board, his big thing was, you're double charging the taxpayers. Okay? And my reply was, it's no different than the rec department getting $1 million, and then I still have to pay for my daughter to go to camp. Okay? We bill the people for the service through Medicaid, Medicare, and their insurance. We write off, I can't even tell you the amount, but we have everything that you're gonna want. You just have to ask for it. You never ask for it. This 13 pages comes out of nowhere on December 1st for what? I've been coming to the town board for budget since 2007, minus 2 years. And now there's a problem with how we do business? A month before the end of the year?
Well, this is in response to some of the things that we discovered the night of the budget hearing, the workshop that we had with you.
So I would like to go over a couple of those things, if that's okay. One, the new ambulance. That was me. I found it on Facebook, and the major thing in it was that it fit in the building. To order that ambulance, brand new, custom, to fit in the building, would be $250,000. We got that ambulance complete for $154,000. It was a long, drawn-out process because the dealer that we bought it from was going bankrupt. It became a whole legal issue, and we ended up getting it for even less than we even thought we were going to get it for. Two, they sold it out of their territory, so chances are the money that we had to pay out for paint and lettering, we're going to get reimbursed at some point. So it's going to be even less money that we paid for that ambulance. It's four-wheel drive. No new money was spent for that ambulance.
But Chris, no
Hold on,
one's questioning the purchase, no
Hold on
one's
a second.
questioning the.
Can I finish? Can I
Sure,
please finish?
Go ahead.
Thank you. No new money was spent on that ambulance. Since we bought the other two 5 years ago, which we financed $200,000. The ambulance corps financed that. So that's part of the reason why I have a problem if we have to give it to you for $1, but we still have debt to pay out. We paid that $200,000 off almost 3 years early, saving the taxpayers thousands of dollars in interest. We found our payment was $35,000 a year. This year we paid $20,000. We found this ambulance. Now, a couple good things. We get to stagger the ambulances by 5 years. The new ambulance is four-wheel drive, which in 55 years of the Phillipstown ambulance being in service has never had, and covered a ton of calls the other night during the foot of snow. And there was absolutely no new money that came out from the town. And it's going to be paid off in the same amount of time the other two were going to be paid off. So the loan doesn't even get extended any. For about a month and a half, we did run 3 ambulances because we had them. And because of all the to-do with the new ambulance and the radios and everything else, it took time. And then we got it, and then it took time for it to sell. We pushed it, and it sold in a month and a half. That money's going right towards this one to save interest again. So I don't see the problem with that. Maybe you do, maybe I'm missing something. But as Mike said, with the billing, how could you expect us to change the billing process in a month?
We're not looking to change the billing process. It's going to be identical. This is completely an issue of verbiage in a contract. We're not looking to change the billing.
And receiving a statement,
Yeah,
an
receiving
accounting
a
from the
statement.
billing
It's
company.
an accounting issue. It's an accounting issue that's required by general municipal law.
You've never asked for it, not once.
We weren't aware of it.
Do you know, can I ask what percentage of your budget is the
Well-
billing, the revenue that comes in outside of the taxpayer funds?
It differs because you bill by loaded mileage. So from the center of town in Phillipstown, it's 16 miles from Hudson Valley Hospital and St. Luke's Hospital. So it's roughly around 16 miles. It differs depending on where you are. You know, if we go somewhere else, mutual aid, and it's closer, it's lesser of a, so it's hard to determine what it is. For the budget that I gave you, I believe it was around 167,000 that we projected for next year to zero out the budget. We asked you guys for 352,000. Excuse me, so what that actual percentage is, I'm not 100% sure. I can't do that off the top of my head, but, you know, it's not like we're making more than half or double the amount and asking you for money and we're sitting on a buttload of money.
That's not what this is about, though. Again, the functional concerns in the ambulance corps, that's not what we're looking to get into the business of. One thing we're talking about, okay, this was dropped on us 8 days or with 8 days less than a year. No one came to us and apprised us of the fact that you were buying another ambulance, that you were selling an ambulance that 5 years ago we funded through taxpayer money. No one discussed any of these things with us. No one discussed that you'd gotten an inheritance. No one discussed the fact that you had entered into an agreement to go to Kent with ambulances. No one discussed
there's
that you had
nothing
entered
under
into an agreement with
general
Putnam
municipal law that says
Valley.
that we
Chris,
have
can
to.
I finish? Chris, can I finish?
Sure, go ahead.
Why, thank you. I'm running the meeting, so I think I will. Anyway, no one told us, no one apprised us of any of these things. The fact that you were going to Putnam Valley to enter into a mutual aid agreement, the fact that you're going to Kent, the fact that an ambulance was being parked on the other side of the Deconic Parkway.
That's not true.
Well, that's what we have.
Do you know when the medic goes central and sometimes the medic's in an ambulance, he stations at the Taconic? They'll confirm it for me. They're sitting right here. That's an M-Star ambulance, not a Philipstown. And if it is a Philipstown ambulance, it's because we got dispatch canceled and turned around.
So you weren't going to Kent?
I never said that. But the other point is that...
Were you going to Kent?
Yes,
Why were we going to Kent with Phillipstown ambulances?
because we entered into a mutual aid agreement, which you guys...
Did you inform us that you were going to go to
We
Kent?
don't have to. Even with your new verbiage, we still don't have to.
So Phillipstown taxpayers were funding an ambulance to go to Kent?
No.
Really? So were you going to Kent?
We signed a county mutual aid plan. We have to go anyway.
It
So-
wasn't mutual aid to Kent.
Yes, okay, hold on a second. Let's start over. Can we start over? I'm going to explain this in its entirety. So, it is a known thing in the county that we have a full crew in Philipstown. Okay? You can do two things. You can either come up with a mutual aid agreement that you kind of set the stage for, or you just say, we're not going. Now, how the contract was written up, and I could be wrong, but when we were dispatched, we had to respond no matter what or where it was, no? Right. So, it was 100% my idea. If you guys want to be mad about it, come at me about it. Because I said we were going to Beacon all the time, and we were going to Putt Valley and Kent more often. In Putt Valley's defense, they have 3 ambulances, they were down to 1. They just brought 2 brand new ones, so hopefully they'll be up and going, and we will be going less. We offered to Beacon, do you want to get into a mutual aid agreement so we're not getting dispatch and canceled? Because more times than not, we're canceled. So we're not even covering calls, we're not generating anything. Putt Valley and Kent, on the other hand, were like, yes, that would be great, we would appreciate the help. In turn, we added a third EMT for 16 hours. So out of those calls, we covered 10 in Beacon, 4 in Garrison, 17 in Kent, and 18 in Putnam Valley. On top of that, we covered 20 second calls here, every first call, and 20 second calls in the town of Phillipstown. So to say that it was a complete waste that we did it just for Kent is not entirely true. Because we end up going anyway, and when we ended up going, it left nobody here. So now we covered these additional calls with our volunteer staff and the additional EMT that we had. And it's working, and we're generating income. Is it paying for itself? I don't know, but we have generated income. The billing isn't instantaneously. It doesn't just pop in and we know it's Putt Valley or Kent. But we're generating income, it's offsetting the cost of everything, and we're covering second calls here.
But you don't think all of this was worthy of a discussion with the town that funds you?
This all came about because we applied for a stimulus loan, which is in the budget that I gave you, the PPP loan, which goes off your payroll earnings, and they set the amount. We got an additional $52,000 and change, or $51,000 and change, whatever it was. We spent it according to the rules of the loan, and knock on wood, we didn't have COVID run rampant through the ambulance corps. So we had extra money, and when we said this and brought this to Putt Valley and Kent, they said, we said to them, it's temporary to the end of the year to see how it goes, to see if it works, see if we can formulate a plan. And it's worked, and it has cost us no extra money. So not only did we do this mutual aid, add an extra 16 hours a day for 7 days a week, and buy a new ambulance, our budget only went up $6,909. So we got to be doing something right. Now, you may not like it, but you guys don't want to know anything until you don't like it. That's not really fair to us.
How will we know anything if you don't bring it to us?
I get one letter a year, and it says, what's your budget? Stay within this. I do that. I come, say hello, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I don't hear from you guys either. Now, I know you knew we had 3 ambulances because it was said to Nick. It was all a big thing. I came here, you guys had all your ducks in a row ready to ask questions. All you had to do was call me and ask me. Have I never not been willing to communicate with you guys?
But the thing is, that was the first time we were finding out about this.
Okay, but you give me an amount of money to handle business, and business is being handled. You make like I came back and said I need $100,000 because I screwed up this new ambulance purchase and I'm doing all this stuff in Putt Valley and Kent.
It's not about the money.
If it's not about the money, then what is it about?
It's about, well, it is about taxpayer money in Phillipstown.
Okay.
I shouldn't say it. Why is Kent not covering their own calls? Why are we aiding Kent?
Why are we sending money to Beacon during COVID situations? In Dutchess County, the town is sending money up there.
We're not sending taxpayer.
Well, there was a newspaper article about it.
We're not sending taxpayer money to Beacon.
Oh, okay. Then I must have misread that article.
That was private funds.
Oh, okay. Those private funds can't be used here?
Well, that was designated by the people who gave us that money.
We're not going to talk around the issue here.
We're not talking around the issue.
The fact is,
We're
not gonna
providing
muddy
a
the water with
service.
this
When we
either.
are dispatched, we have to go. That's how our contract is written.
How is Kent currently operating their ambulance corps?
They don't have an ambulance corps, they have a
They
fire
don't have an
department.
ambulance corps, so they're relying on Phillipstown to supply ambulance services to Kent.
No, they're not. No, hold on one second. They are not. They wanted dual dispatch. I said I wasn't in favor of it, but we did it temporarily. They're trying to sell to their fire commissioners that they want paid staff, okay? The mutual aid plan has now changed. They get 6 minutes to get out, and if they don't, guess what? If we're closer, we have to go anyway.
So who was first dispatched in Kent?
Kent.
And after Kent?
And after that?
Phillipstown and whoever else is closer.
Yeah, but Phillipstown first, not whoever else is closer. No, well, that's not what the county's telling us.
That's the county right there.
All right, well, be interested to hear.
As the county EMS director, I can tell you that that is not correct.
All right, well, what is correct?
As the county EMS director, I have the authority to manage mutual aid for the county. Currently, Kent goes 3 dispatches, and then the closest available unit is dispatched to the call. If that happens to be Phillipstown Ambulance, they are sent to the call for service. That is the agreement that we have with every fire department and ambulance corps in the county. The closest available ambulance is dispatched to the call for service. All right, well, that's how we operate the dispatch center, I can tell you that.
There's no agreement between Kent and the Phillipstown Volunteer Ambulance Corps?
There is a mutual aid agreement that they provide mutual aid for each other.
That Phillipstown will be first dispatched regardless if
currently.
anybody else is closer?
As Chris said, that was an agreement that was in place for 30 days to attempt to mitigate a situation that Kent had. That agreement was just removed, and I just signed the new mutual aid plan that is now in effect.
When
that
was
they are
this?
3, I couldn't tell you, I have to look back in my notes, but
Was it this month, last month?
this month.
So a few days ago?
2 weeks ago? Last Wednesday.
But up until then, the situation was that if Kent was called and they didn't come, Phillipstown would be called first regardless of who was closest.
No.
Wasn't that what the agreement was, that they just
The
gave
agreement
up?
would be that they would be dispatched with them, and if they are the closest available ambulance, which they are because they are currently staffed, then they go. The definition of available is what you're talking about here. Available being that you have paid personnel sitting in a building ready and willing to assist is different than sending 3 tones to a different agency to hope that somebody comes from home to respond. Our goal is to meet standards. The standard is that we get a closest available ambulance to an individual who needs assistance. If that happens to be Phillipstown, which most of the time in that circumstance it was, then we provide that service.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but what was the agreement that just went by the boards the last few days ago?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
What was the agreement that just went by the boards a few days ago, the one you just referenced?
That we just signed is now that Kent gets 3 dispatches and then
the one that was in
Phillipstown
place
goes out.
before that, the 30-day agreement.
That they were dual dispatched.
So Phillipstown and Kent were simultaneously dispatched?
Correct.
Regardless of if there was another, other provider
Correct.
closer?
As Chris said, that was the trial period to determine what the impact would be on both agencies.
Who entered into that contract?
It's not a contract, it's an agreement.
Who
It's a
entered
mutual
into that agreement?
Phillipstown Ambulance, Kent Fire District, and the county.
Okay, but not the town.
No, because you've contracted them to provide the service.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
How you doing, everybody? I'm Nicholas Falcone. I'm the captain of for Philipstown Ambulance. I just wanted to touch base a little bit on the mutual aid agreement. So, obviously, you guys may be aware. I don't know how well informed you are of EMS and EMS law and how it works. Mutual aid agreements and how they're in place. There's state law. There's county mutual aid agreements. Before we had this agreement in place, with Kent and Putnam Valley, we were still going mutual aid to Kent and Putnam Valley, but there was a longer dispatch time. So let's say a call, you live in Kent and you had trouble breathing, you would call 911, Kent would get dispatched, it would give them 3 dispatches, then the next agency, they would get 3 dispatches, then the next agency, they would get 3 dispatches, and then eventually it would get to Phillipstown, which ended up making us have a long, extensive time, because now you're talking a half hour into the call. So we had temporarily alleviated that situation by doing a mutual aid agreement temporarily with Kent to provide service faster. We were going to go anyway. This cut down the response time for patient care. So we originally went with dual dispatch per Kent, and we responded. If Kent crewed for their call with their volunteers, we were canceled, we were returned to service, and they handled their call, which minimized response time for patient care. Now that they've gotten a little bit better, they've been responding. We've changed the agreement, like we've discussed, so they get their 3 dispatches, and then the closest agency to wherever geographically that call is gets their dispatch, and they try to crew first. If they do not crew, then it goes to Phillipstown. The whole point is to minimize response time for patient care, and the whole thing is patient care. So just so you know, and Putnam Valley, same thing. Putnam Valley had a more tough situation because they had multiple ambulances out of service. The same agreement should be in place for Putnam Valley and Garrison. We just mutual aid for Garrison because it's the same town, comes in the same pot, and they get their 3 dispatches. If they cannot crew, then we go to Garrison. It's all the town of Phillipstown. So that's the way it's set up. Did I clarify that for you?
Well,
Go ahead.
the Putt Valley agreement, I heard for a week you were primary there. That Putt
Say
was,
that-
I
say
heard
that
Putt
again?
Valley. I heard you were primary dispatch in Putt Valley for at least a week.
No, that is not true. That is incorrect.
That's what I heard. I heard they had
I'm
some
sorry,
sort of
you were
problem,
misinformed.
and you had the Phillipstown
no,
Volunteer Ambulance
you-
Corps had agreed to be the primary provider in Putt Valley for at least a week.
And we were never primary dispatched for Putnam Valley's calls at any point since we entered this agreement. Putnam Valley gets 3 dispatches, goes to the closest agency first. If they're unavailable, then it goes to us. That's how it's set up.
Was there a period of time where they were on vacation or something, and they had vehicles out of service, and you agreed to undertake that?
Yeah, sure. Maybe he wants to address that.
So, I don't know what you heard.
That's what I
But,
heard.
no, that's fine, but we were not primary. The captain of Putnam Valley VAC was going away. She goes, can you help me and provide an EMT for my district while I'm away because I don't have anybody that can commit. So we provided Putnam Valley VAC with an EMT for 180 hours, and they reimbursed us for the entire thing and paid for it. Again, I appreciate what you hear, but just call me and I'll clarify anything you need to know, which I have done over the last 15 years to the board with
But
no
entering
problem.
into the agreement with Putt Valley, again, you didn't consult the town.
It's a mutual aid plan, which is signed, a county mutual aid plan, and that we don't have to notify you guys. I'm sorry. If you want to be notified, I know that now. I will notify you. But we are providing a service. We are not asking for any additional money, any additional resources. We're doing what we were asked to do, and nowhere does it say we have to tell you. Nowhere. And you know that.
Well, do you think Phillipstown taxpayers would want to know that, you know, I think I'm a newly elected official, but I wasn't aware that of the agreements, mutual aid agreements with the other towns, and the availability of Phillipstown ambulances for our own residents. I mean, we have almost 10,000 residents now. So I think, you know, the
Well, that's
concern
between
is.
Garrison and Phillipstown, not just Phillipstown.
Right, no, but the concern is, you know, to make sure that our residents are covered, but also, you know, to comply with New York State municipal law, because as an elected official and a municipal officer, it's important also to comply with the regulations and not have our taxpayers at risk for any liability as well.
Right, but see, the other part of this is that we signed a county mutual aid plan. Every department signs a county mutual aid plan. We have to go when we're dispatched. You're not going to change that. You can say, fine, you're not going to have this agreement with Putt Valley and Kent, but now, that's fine. Then we get rid of the third EMT, and then we have to go anyway. And then there's not going to be the third EMT to help provide coverage with the volunteers for the second call in district here. We're going to end up going anyway. That's the main purpose. We signed a county mutual aid plan. We can't say no.
So Chris, during this period of time in mutual aid, how many calls did Kent respond to in Phillipstown?
None.
Zero.
I mean, really, in fairness, what's keeping one town from not being as good as the other because they can rely on mutual aid?
Well, listen,
I
we
mean,
were dispatched.
shouldn't we have a process where we're meeting a certain level of standard for each town? Otherwise, somebody else could say, look, hey, Phillipstown, look how great they're supplied with people. I don't have to worry as much.
Yeah,
Well, mutual aid says we have to go. Well,
Councilman, this is, you guys are touching on a problem, and I don't know, Kenny, if you want to touch on this as the county EMS director, but this is the problem that we have in Putnam County, Westchester County, Dutchess County. It's a bigger problem than just Phillipstown. And Councilwoman, I know you're just coming on to the board, as you said. If you haven't interacted with any of the fire service or the EMS service,
Well, I know them. I've lived in Phillipstown a long time, but
or how they technically operate or how they operate behind the scenes. So this is a problem that's everywhere, and certainly as an attorney to multiple districts and fire departments and whatnot, I see this concern across all of the town boards. I feel take advantage of, relying on our resources and whatnot. What's important here is that when those resources have gone elsewhere, I think the overarching point is the fact that no matter what, if they end up having to go anyway, what Chris and the members at Phillipstown VAC have done has, they've gotten ahead of the issue and said, look, let's cut off the 18 minutes. At least we're going to be able to go out and bill and recoup some of this money. We get paid back for the services, the extra EMT that they provide. So we're doing the things that would, in fact, protect the taxpayers so that we're not getting taken advantage of. Because if we were continually taken advantage of, we would do whatever we could do to get out of the mutual aid agreement. We wouldn't get into the county mutual aid agreement if there wasn't some benefit there. And under the ambulance situation, because you have paid EMTs, you're less likely to need help. But when you do in fact need help, but whether it's a major fire call that has significant ambulance response where we need multiple ambulances, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced a mass casualty incident. That's something that we prepare for, where you know, many ambulances are needed, or fire trucks, or water, or whatever. We do these things because we're neighbors. That's why we do it.
But
And
the question becomes, when does it become mutual if Kent is not legitimately funding an ambulance corps? And I can understand the proactive nature of this, but if we're so proactive that we're enabling Kent not to meet their responsibilities in their community, and it's coming back in the Phillipstown taxpayer, then that's not something we need to address.
well, understood. And we could have, you guys, as a town board, can have a conversation with the Kent, with the town of Kent.
But
We encourage it.
intend to. But again, these are things we're just finding out, and that's just saying, you know, dropping this on you with only 8 days left in the year. Well, we were unaware of all this stuff going on until that time.
But
We've been in the mutual aid plan for years.
Well, mutual aid is one thing. If it's mutual aid, it's one thing. But it feels like it's not mutual. It feels like Kent would not be
One-sided.
responding in Phillipstown. Phillipstown chronically going to Kent. She said 21, 22 calls in Kent.
Well, right, you know, they also covered 23 of their own calls out of 47. So,
Well, look, we don't have to defend Kent, okay? There's,
Right.
you know, we don't, honestly, we don't have a horse in that race. We don't have to defend Kent.
Right.
You know, but what's so patently obvious here is that there certainly isn't enough communication between the town board and the volunteer ambulance corps. I mean, you know, it doesn't take a genius to point that out. That should be happening a lot more, so you don't have these, hey, look, we've been doing this for decades conversation, because frankly, it's embarrassing. So, you know, if we should be having more regular discussions with what goes on, I don't think anybody's opposed to that.
Right.
And it certainly eliminate the hard feelings, because we're out there trying to, you know, we're thinking we're doing a good job, and then we come to a meeting and find out you guys are pissed. And you know, who wants that to happen? We don't want that to happen. We're volunteering. You know, we're the ones going out in the middle of the night helping people. So to come to a town board meeting and get yelled at because you're just finding out stuff is, you know, we don't want to hear that. We don't want to be in that situation. I mean, we don't, and we're all neighbors.
Right, we also want to meet our fiscal,
Of
our
course.
fiduciary responsibilities.
No
and
doubt.
Be
No
compliant
doubt.
with the law. So that's been part of the issue here, so.
well, if I could just add to that. Carmel Volunteer Ambulance Corps just stopped contracting with MSTAR. They were providing them 2 EMTs at $25 an hour. I don't know what it would be to put 2 people, a full crew, and 1 ambulance here, but if you do the math just at $25 an hour, 24/7, you're over $400,000. You're getting 3 EMTs for $352. Are you really screwing the taxpayer? But
No, we're not saying anybody's screwing anybody, that's the
well, no,
thing.
because you're sitting here saying that you have a responsibility to the taxpayer, and that's fine. But what you're getting between Garrison and Phillipstown for the amount that you're getting for is a really good deal. And we are doing our best to provide the service. And we're doing a good job. And listen, like I said, I talk to you guys once a year. And it's okay until it's not okay. And then it's 13 pages of stuff that we've been doing wrong. And, you know, you've been here for 9, 10 years. You've been looking at the same contract every year, and now all of a sudden it's a problem. So maybe you're not doing your due diligence in your position. Just saying. Okay? You've been here since you left the village. You've looked at the same contract, you sit there like you do, and you say nothing, and every year it's guy, hey, happy holidays, nice to see you, thanks, everybody's doing a good job. We don't agree on everything. You gave, a couple years ago, you gave us money for raises over 2 years. That's great. That helped us out a lot. We were able to bring in better EMTs. This is a group effort here. But and John sat there and he said, I got my pager. I hear everything. This started in August. So if John's sitting there listening and nothing said until December, you knew nobody chose to say anything. And there's nowhere legally that I'm obligated to.
Well, I think if taxpayers are funding it, I think you are obligated. It's taxpayer, it's public funds.
I mean, that's fine, but we give you a budget every year. You ask me questions about the budget, I answer you. It's all right there. Every dollar we get, every dollar we spend, there's no other questions. You give me the money and we handle business.
Thing is, if we don't know about certain things, like the sale of an ambulance, or the purchase of a new ambulance, or the entering into of agreements, then we won't know to ask those questions. That's the issue.
John
And
Van
if it,
Tassel's been in the emergency services for 32 years. He was captain of the ambulance corps in 1994.
John's not sitting here right now. He's not sitting here
Of course
right
he's not,
now.
and that's fine. But he was the one that reached out to Kenny Clare. But he has to recuse himself from this meeting. And that's fine. That's his whatever. Okay? But he was captain of this ambulance corps in 1994. It hasn't changed. You signed a county mutual aid agreement then, we sign it now. He bought ambulances then, we buy them now. I think you guys should be happy we have a four-wheel drive ambulance to protect the taxpayers on top of East Mountain.
Well, sure, we are happy about that. We just found out about it.
No, you knew.
No, I did
It
not
sat
know.
right
I
in the
did not
parking
know
lot.
this.
You
You're
were
not
at
saying-
town hall every day.
For you to say that
for the-
I know.
You sit at town hall every day for the construction. You see it, but you don't ask. Instead, you call him
I'm
up and
not
say,
looking at the,
how
I'm
do
not
we
looking
get
at
rid
the
of
ambulance
this?
corps. I'm looking at town hall.
Well, that's fine. But you call him up and say, how do I get rid of this guy?
No, Chris,
Yes, you
I don't
did.
think you want to go there. I don't think you want to go
No,
there.
I do, please.
Look, when we,
Yeah, but would you
when-
like not to say that you did not tell Mr. Ligori that? That he called you in October and said, how do we get rid of this guy? And they don't want to work for Chris Tobin?
I never said that exactly. What I said was that there's a provision in there regarding oversight of management, and that the town board has serious questions about the judgment and the professional behavior of Chris Tobin. And for him to come back in a position of management, if he's submitted with the slate, some board members would have a problem with.
No, that's not what you said, okay? I asked you, I said, I had to call you back because you told me that if Chris was still in charge of the ambulance corps, that you guys were going out to bid.
I said that was a very likely thing to happen, yeah?
Yeah, and I asked you, I said, how do you think that's going to land with the volunteers?
we don't know.
We don't know.
Right, you don't know. But that's a pretty
When
nasty
the town
message to send.
contracts with someone, that person in essence becomes an ambassador for the town. You can have people going around insulting the county, insulting county workers. You can't have that going on. Chris, I'm not recognizing you. This is my meeting. I've heard enough from you right now.
Mr. Supervisor, Town Board, Commissioner Ken Clare from the county. How are you, Ken? Good, how are you? Good. So first off, I just want to, let's really, I can't believe what I'm listening to. We should be thanking Garrison Ambulance and Phillipstown Ambulance because the stats are real, and I'll have my EMS director come up shortly. The stats are real. They are covering 97% of the calls in this county. Are they going mutual aid? Yes, they are. And we've entered into a mutual aid agreement, as we do every year. With the Fire Advisory Board, we develop a mutual aid plan per the state protocol. As commissioner, that is my job. One of my jobs, I need to sit with the Fire Advisory Board, and we review the mutual aid plan. We make changes, usually changes in, regulations of firefighters and what kind of classes you might need, and it's always more restrictive. All agencies, fire departments, ambulance corps, take an effect, and they sign the mutual aid plan. It's never brought in front of a town board. I can speak for my fire district, which is Brewster. It goes in front of the fire chief, it goes in front of the fire district, they sign it, and it goes. It never goes in front of the town board. So, as far as the conversation we had regarding Chris and the behavior he acted, it was a meeting, and I think I've explained that to several people now. It was a county chiefs meeting, and we had a fire advisory board meeting. We can agree to disagree. It was an argument. It was over the mutual aid plan. It was over about what we're doing. We're saying we need to focus on the closest agencies. Kent, Pot Valley, they did sign an agreement. It was more of as the fire coordinator of the county, I'm responsible for the movement of all apparatus, as is the EMS coordinator. It was probably more upsetting about that this contract was signed without me seeing it as a coordinator, because stuff has to get reviewed and it gets sent up to New York State as the fire coordinator for the mutual aid approval plan. So that's really how that went about. I've been with Chris in several meetings after that whole effect, and there's no issues. I'm in the position I'm in because, we make decisions and people don't always like my decisions. I don't always like the fire chief's decisions, but at the end of the day, we have a job to do. My job is to make sure that fire and EMS is covered in this county. It's nothing personal to anybody. Phillipstown, Garrison, phenomenal job. I wish more of our departments did that. And that's one of the things we do discuss at the Fire Advisory Board is how do we improve service in the county? How do we improve service, with the fire departments? It's not just an EMS issue, it's a fire issue too. Many fire departments have taken, have gone beyond the mutual aid plan at this point. They've contracted, not even contracted, they have done mutual aid agreements during the day. Patterson, Putt Lake are teamed up together. Brewster, Putt Lake are teamed up together. Kent and Lake Carmel are teamed up together because we have a lack of volunteers in the county, as Mr. Ligori said. That is our biggest issue that we're facing. That's my biggest issue as a commissioner right now of how are we going to keep the volunteer forces in Putnam County? How are we going to keep the taxes down in the county without paying everybody? I think you're getting a heck of a deal for what you're doing. And yes, there at any given point, Phillipstown has been covered with multiple ambulances. I know you're concentrating on the whole, when does Kent pay back to us? That's really a discussion you should have with, the town of Kent. But
If we keep enabling Kent, then what's the impetus for them to go ahead
Rich, the same thing happened with Brewster. We were the first, we had a big, huge problem. Everyone was going mutual aid to Brewster, and like, you have a problem. Yeah, we did have a problem. We took care of the problem. We staffed 2 paid EMTs during the day. And what happened? We started going mutual aid to Lake Carmel. We started going mutual aid to Carmel itself. It's like, okay, we know there's a paid staff on. Let's use Brewster because they're going to cover the calls. Little by little, every agency is starting to pay staff. And I think you're going to see that, unfortunately, happen. One of the services the county provides is paramedic service.
Right.
Nobody blinks an eye to the county about that we cover that tab. We are the only county in New York State that covers paramedic service. That's a free service to you as a supervisor.
It's not free. There is no free service. It's
Well,
taxpayer.
I mean, they're billing people, but at the end of the day, the county pays a lot of money for paramedic service.
Phillipstown pays a lot of that money.
And every agency does that pays into it.
It's taxpayer money. It's not free.
Correct. These trying times, I can rest assured, you are getting a heck of a deal with Phillipstown and with Garrison.
We're not disputing that. This
Right.
is more about oversight.
Understandable. I can't thank these guys enough. The entire, all the fire and EMS services, especially this time with COVID, we have full squads going out of service. We have fire departments losing 27, 28 guys because they can't respond in our county. The numbers are real. We have EMTs sitting in hospitals because they're responding to COVID calls. These are our volunteers that are doing this, that are risking their lives for us. So I'm very appreciative of what they do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I don't want it to get so hot that we lose sight of the fact that there are volunteers out there all the time. And we understand that. We also have 24/7 paid staff. I want to make that clear. But this is not about the job you're doing. We understand and we appreciate the job you're doing. We're not looking to drag in here and berate anybody. It's about oversight for the town. So that's in essence what it is. So we're going to move on to Garrison, so we don't have to keep these guys here all night just to listen to their concerns about this. It's an airing out of things, and we'll get back to you on that. But yeah, one final thing from Phillipstown. Okay.
Hello again.
Yeah.
Judith?
Yes.
Okay, Judith. You brought up just
Councilwoman
I'm sorry.
Farrell.
Councilman Judith Farrell, sorry. You brought up a point that you live in Phillipstown, that you were worried, you were concerned that because of taxpayer money, an ambulance responding to you if we're going mutual aid, right?
Yes,
Okay. So
coverage for
since this
Phillipstown.
mutual aid plan has been in set, every call in the town of Phillipstown was either covered by our Phillipstown ambulance or another town of Phillipstown ambulance, which was Garrison, responded to every call. So I just want to rest assured that every person in this district, since this has happened, has been covered by our agency or the other agency that you pay for this town, which is Garrison VAC. At no point did we strip our district to the point that it was uncovered or uncovered any call. And I just wanted to just let you know, lastly, I know you obviously understand that we're volunteers and we're also paid staff, but we do more than just respond to EMS calls in this community. We're part of the Phillipstown hub. We work directly with Danielle Pack McCarthy. We're in talks every day with that, or every week, I should say, with the drug crisis and psychiatric emergencies. So we deal with that. We have a community outreach program that we just started this year. Unfortunately, the pandemic fell on us, where we were going to take blood pressures for senior citizens. That was supposed to start up over the summer. Unfortunately, that didn't. But we had a lot of programs that we were planning on just getting together and doing with the volunteers. You know, we did get to participate in a few of the festivities with the drive-through Halloween, right here, back here, with the Halloween drive-through. We were able to do that for the community. And there's stuff that we're trying to give back to the community like that. So we're here, we're trying. This whole pandemic, none of our volunteers left and ran. We've literally been trying this whole year, and we're trying to help, and we're trying to do the best that we can, paid staff and volunteer. So I just want you guys to know that, you know, and take that into consideration.
Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'm very grateful for the dedication of the volunteers and the Phillipstown Ambulance Corps. I mean,
I appreciate
that's
that.
unquestionable that you're dedicated and you're providing services to the community.
We all appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you through these troubling times of the pandemic. Thank you for your continued support.
All right, thanks.
Sure. While Garrison is about to come up, I just, you know, I really want to say that there's a testament to these two agencies. They are both the top performing agencies in the county. And, you know, I understand the frustrations with mutual aid, and I get it. Believe me, I do. So going more than you're getting, but it's not a bad thing in essence. It's a testament to the work that Nick and Chris and Derek and the folks over at Garrison do every day to have PVAC cover 97.53% of their volume, only using and receiving mutual aid 2.47% of the time, is huge. GVAC is 96.13% of their volume, only using mutual aid 3.87% of the time. Not only that, but one of the things as they're discussing that we struggle with throughout the county is something called shoot time. And shoot time is the time, as Nick was bringing up, from the time an ambulance is dispatched to the time that ambulance is actually in drive. And the national standard for that is pretty low. It's about a minute. And both GVAC and PVAC meet that standard. And they are the only two agencies in Putnam County that do. So the amount of effort and what they're doing, and I think that to address the councilwoman's concern is, as Nick said, there was zero loss of service to either agency during any of the mutual aid agreements. In fact, all they did was improve service throughout the county, which is all that we can ask for. And you are 100% correct, and as the commissioner said, it's certainly a conversation that we have to have across the county, because Kent using over 47% mutual aid to cover their volume, they're aware it's unacceptable. Everybody is. But volunteerism is a dying breed. And the fact that these individuals are able to continue to maintain a volunteer agency and supplement those volunteers with paid staff and not the other way around, where they have a paid agency supplemented by volunteers, it is a very big deal. And they should be commended for that. So I just, you know, I want to make sure that...
Do you think we'd be reaching those statistics if we didn't have 24/7 paid staff?
No, you absolutely would not.
Right.
And that's something other districts, as the commissioner said, as everybody has said, they need to start facing. And we have an obligation to provide that service. We have an obligation to provide ambulance service when someone calls 911. And the reality is, and this has been my platform since I started my career, is that when you call 911, you don't care if it's somebody who's paid or a volunteer or an EMT, or you don't know who's coming through the door, you just need help. Right. And the fact that Phillipstown and GVAC consistently provide that help is what speaks volumes about who these people are and what they do for the community. And you know, in terms of the oversight that you're looking for, I also understand that. I've been involved in many ambulance services, and I can tell you that there is not an ambulance service I've ever worked for, been a part of, been the chief of, where a town board has had that type of oversight. You're contracting for someone to provide services, and there certainly are provisions that you need to have in the contract. But if I turned around to MSTAR tomorrow and told them that I needed to approve their management structure, they would laugh me out of the building, and they wouldn't sign anything with us, because that's not something I can do.
It's a different agreement, though. It's a different sort of arrangement.
But
It's
just to show that contrast throughout the services that are offered. You know, again, the point of being up here is just to commend these folks for what they do and make sure that that's very much understood, and that at no time was anyone in the town of Phillipstown in jeopardy of not receiving an ambulance. In fact, they received an ambulance faster than anyone else in the county does. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on, bub.
No, we're gonna bring Garrison up because otherwise we're gonna be here until midnight. Derek, you gonna step up? That'd be great. How are you, Derek?
I'm doing all right. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys. Always in the past, we've always thought we always had pretty good communications between each other. We just I wanted to stay doing, to communicate and, be on the same level, so we're aware of what we're doing. I don't know if maybe a town board member wants to participate in our meetings, or, we've been doing them by Zoom and stuff, so, to be more aware, if something like that, if you're more than welcome. Every time I've come, we've been doing this a long time, I've always offered, you guys come down and visit the building anytime, always welcome. We have nothing, last year, we submitted, the audit from the accountant. You guys are all aware of what we do receive. We were kind of shocked when we did get the letter. We understand why, things, the billing is more clear now than, what we were sent. I understand what you're trying to achieve now at that point. The other things with the ambulance and stuff, we contacted Penske, the attorneys, and he went through the contract and has a few things that he, suggested that you might, be benefit to both us and to the town board. Dave, I have Dave going to forward it to you, and if you guys could look through that and see, with his suggestion. Penske Law Group is they basically do fire and EMS law through the state. That's their specialty, and so we figured that they would be the ones to contact for advice for what the things. He did go through the contract, and he has a few things, so I don't want to keep you guys here and go through it with you. So I'm going to have Dave forward it to you, and if you could read through that stuff, and if we could sit down and, again or whatever, and work out something. As far as the billing was brought about because when the county, when we first started bringing ALS into the county, the ALS provider does have a contract with the county, but they also do bill. And it does affect the seniors in the town. Just as an example, the main reason when I was actually a member of Phillipstown at the time, we had done a call at Chestnut Ridge for a cardiac event. The Sloper medic had shown up, provided the service, transported to the hospital. About 3 weeks later, the patient received a bill for $750. And they, these ambulance corps, they're in businesses to make money. They're not. Now you're going to be paying for the service for them to be there, but the person using the service is also. Since we put both agencies have put the service in, no residents of the town of Philipstown should be getting ALS bills from Sloper, or from now MSTAR. So, the money that we do bill, we're not only just using it to do the supplies and restocking and equipment, and stuff around the building. We're also paying so the residents don't have to pay the bill. So I mean, it's one hand, if you take the cost, of doing it the other way, it puts a big burden on some people. I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of money in this town, but there are also a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
And those, are the ones that really should watch for.
Yep.
So, and if we could, we'd like to work it out with you guys, and I think both agencies do the best they can to provide services, and we would like to continue to do it. All right.
I'm sure you will. I mean, that's not what this is about. Again, it's about our mandate for oversight, general municipal law, things like that.
Like I said, if there's any, if there's any questions, I know John, he you know, anytime he's ever had a question or what do you call it, I've never held anything back. You know, Bob, you could, you know, see, you know, if you ever have any questions, don't ever hesitate. I mean, I've known you guys a long time.
Yep.
So.
What about the rules and regulations? Did Brad Finsky have an issue with those too, or was it just
Certain
gonna-
things, he had, like I said, there's certain things like with the mutual aid, you know, there was a bunch of different things. If, what do you call it?
You're going to send that
But you'll
information?
get that marked up copy to us?
Yeah,
right.
actually, you're right with them. All right, you want to go?
If you want. I mean, if you want to email it, that's fine too.
Take it.
Well, I'll email it to you. You can do
Yeah,
it.
that's
All
fine.
right, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else from Garrison? Wanna? Sure, David?
David Lilburn. I'm president of Garrison Ambulance. Wasn't expecting to be president, but COVID, as mentioned before, lost a lot of members around the place. So all of a sudden I found myself the only board member still there, so guess what? I wanted to thank Derek. Nicely put, Derek. You're right, the letter came in from the town and everyone went, whoa, what's this? I've got a great new board. The board read it. They're all involved in EMS or fire or emergency services around the state. We put them together at the beginning of this year, and they said, total risk management, don't worry about it. This is not confrontational. Let's do it. Let's get a review from the lawyers. We got that review this afternoon. Hence, you know, you haven't heard anything. But I must say, listening to Phillipstown today, thanks guys, hearing what's going on as a group is making such a difference. You know, we can understand each other, and when you sit in your little core building and not hearing what's going on, it's you know, sort of a bit of an echo chamber. So this is great. I feel like we're moving forward, and we're very happy to sit down with you. I know we're not going to get it done by the 1st, but I'm very happy to sit down with you and with Phillipstown, and we'll get this done.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything from the board?
No, I'd just like to say, you know, thank for all the volunteers, and, you know, firemen, volunteer, ambulance corps people, you know, no one's disputing the great job you guys are doing. That's not the purpose here whatsoever.
Right.
We appreciate everyone's effort all the time. I know it's not easy, and you guys do a good job, and again, that's not what we're here for.
Again, it's good to hear from, you know, the county, with the congratulations from the county and the lauding there. You know, I would second that. No one is questioning the service that volunteers do here, and it's the same guys over and over and over every year doing the same work. And we do truly appreciate that, and we don't want to leave the room feeling like, you know, we're dismissing that in any way. But we'll get this worked out. So thanks for coming out. I know it's, you know, a tough time of year. Ken, thanks for coming over from the county, you know, staying your position. That's helpful, very helpful. Chris, thanks for coming in. Derek, thank you. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone have a nice holiday.
Thanks. Happy
please.
Merry Christmas.